Hi, Bl00dy Recapped here. Today we talk about fantastic thriller 2019 year. Cole, keep your eyes open and stay focused.
Told me to run from this house.
What?
A young girl, So Young, moves into her former home to see her sick mother, but already at the doorstep mishaps begin. She lost her cell phone. So when she gets inside, she immediately calls her number and people on the other side answer her with the obvious hope to profit from the loss of the girl, because the phone was the last flagship, which means they will think what reward to ask for it and call back. The girl decides not to give in to unfriendly citizens and runs an application that allows you to track the phone during the call. But the next time she receives a call from an unknown girl who makes it clear that her mother locked her at home and looking for a certain song. Then she hangs up. The situation with her mother's illness is depressing. She is developing a tumor in her brain, and the local doctors are unable to do such operations, so she has to take her to the professionals. When they meet, her mother talks about their neighbor Yanmi, who has made a kind gesture by agreeing to help with the 100 million yen insurance payments, because it's impossible to make that kind of money at So Yeon's job. The mother also instructs her daughter to visit her father's grave to see if she will be buried next to or in the same grave as her husband. But for some unknown reason, So Young makes it clear that she's not too fond of her mother because she doesn't think she deserves to be buried next to her father. The girl of course visits her father's grave, and when she returns home the phone rings again asking So-ee to come immediately, because unknown mother is trying to kill her, after which she hangs up again. At night we see a scar on her leg of unknown origin, after which there is a rumble in the house and So Young wakes up to check what it is, but accidentally finds a hollow wall on the second floor. When she makes a hole in it, she finds a passage down, straight to the spooky rooms, but in them, she finds a diary from 1999 with notes about some ghosts. The next day, the uncle does not burn to answer the girl's questions, only prompts that the girl's mother who kept the diary was a shaman. And on her way home, she notices a Sung-ee store, which should have received yesterday's call from unknown girl. However, at home, Jane Doe dials So Young again and asks for help as her mother tries to burn her, but drops the torch, and So Young watches in her house as the stairs from yesterday's hole begins to burn for nothing. The girl decides to find out what's going on, so she dials the number and gets on the line with the girl and realizes that the person she's talking to lived here 20 years ago and her name is Oh Young-suk, who can't believe that her contact is calling her from the future. So Young tells her that tonight a plane will crash near the airport as proof, and Oh Young hangs up. But in the evening when the girl is having dinner, she has a fight with her mother because So Yeon was eating carelessly. So while she was tying her hair, the news about the crash of the very plane So Yeon was talking about was broadcast on TV. Later, the girls call each other and she discovers a lot of interesting facts. So Young is surprised by her cell phone capabilities, but Oh Young-suk tells her that she's living with a fake mother. Her biological mother died years ago. Then So Young confesses that she also lost her father when her mother forgot to turn off the gas and there was a fire. That's when her scar appeared. When she tries to find out what her date is today, girl disconnects from the call because her mother comes to her. And the next day in 1999, the date changes to November 21st, when a new family arrives to buy a house, but Yeon-suk sees a little girl in the family circle named So Young. She immediately called in the present day and let So Young listen to her father talk, because all those memories were in the past. And at that moment, So Young-suk had a good idea. On November 27th, the girl ran away from home and went on the road, even though she knew very well that her stepmother forbade her to leave the house. On this particular day, So Young's mother painted her nails and forgot to turn off the gas when she left the house, leaving her sleeping father and daughter at home. But on this day, things won't go the same way. In the present tense, So Young gets a call and the burn on her leg heals, which means the past has already been changed. So Young is transported to an unknown room, but it turns out to be her home full of love and joy because her father turns out to be alive and her mother is quite well. So-young thanks Yan-suk for helping her endure the torture from her stepmother. And all in all, things went well. They were friends, and So-yeon would turn on the future music of her favorite artist, and she would leave little secrets around the house for her in return. But not all of them lived up to her time. However, this didn't last long. Soon, on long-awaited calls, So-yeon asked to call back later because she was busy with her father now, which caused the girl to become somewhat embittered, as we can see the jelly bears without heads on the table. And when So-young comes home that same evening and hurries to the phone, the girl's conversation doesn't last long because her mother comes back and catches her daughter with the phone, for which she performs some kind of ritual and beats her with a whip. The next day, So-young finds records on the internet of a brutal murder in her house 20 years ago and an exorcism rite. So So-young waited for the call today to warn Young-suk that she must die today. And in the middle of the night, when her mother came to do the deed and started hitting her, it turned out to be a stuffed toy that Young-suk planted, and in a fit of rage, she killed her mother herself. After another phone call, Yoon-suk doesn't tell what she did to her friend, but she feels like a newborn now that she goes out into the city quietly. But when she drags the guy who sells strawberries into the house, she asks him to wait until she gets changed, and he decides to check the fridge and finds packages with her mother's body parts there. So Yoon-suk gets angry, but the guy notices the phone. In the meantime, So-young's uncle comes over and brings her strawberries, which made her stain her sleeve, but he manages to call So-young, who only hears her friend silence the guy for all eternity, as the strawberry juice immediately disappears. And when she comes downstairs, her parents have no idea what uncle she's talking about. At the station, they explain to her that in 1999, the owner of the strawberry farm was brutally murdered. A couple of days after the crime, the police interviewed people who lived near the strawberry farm and found the home of Young-suk, who was confused by the evidence and lied senselessly to the police. When So-young found Song-yi's store, which Young-suk had called from the beginning, it turned out that the owner had been very nice to Young-suk, until one moment when she did this. When So-young returned home, she called Young-suk, who was covering up the evidence at the time. Their dialogue wasn't as friendly because Young-suk was abusively insulting So-young, and when she mentioned that she found on the news that Young-suk had been sentenced to life in prison for the murders, she demanded to know what evidence she was sent to prison for, because she owed her. Without Young-suk, her father wouldn't exist. In response, the girl hangs up and turns off the phone. But Young-suk did not stop calling, and one day when the doorbell rang, the girl thought it was the police, but it turned out to be So-young and her father. They did not wait her mother at the real estate department to close the deal to sell the house, so they came looking for her. But Young-suk, realizing the chance, invites the family into the house. At this time, So-young's father stops by the curb and is about to teach his daughter how to ride. But when they pull into a tunnel, the father starts to dissolve and the car disappears, leaving So-young with nothing. She quickly heads home and finds that she, in revenge for her empty attempts to call her, she decapitated her father and actually put a knife to her throat. But not at this time. She gives her an hour to find out on what evidence and how she will be arrested, or she will come after her mother and then after her. The girl learns that they will find her knife in the garbage at the dump and gives her the address. But she does not tell her that there will be an explosion there that day because of a gas leak, which means she tried to kill her. A little later, a call comes into So-young's phone asking for help, and So-young-suk survives the explosion, so she douses the child with boiling water for her lies, for which she gets the same burns. But that's not all. She tells that in fact that day her mother was not responsible for her father's death. So Young-suk saw So-young see a TV show and decided to dabble with gas, but she forgot to turn it off and that caused the fire. So she herself killed her father. The girl, wanting to keep at least her mother alive, sneaks into the police station to get some documents about Young-suk, after which she informs her of the real evidence in her direction, so she prevents them from finding them, and the evidence and Young-suk herself begin to dissolve from the police officer's records. And in So-young's house, instead of the junk covered in dust, the furnishings change to a pile of refrigerators. So Young escapes and finds a police notebook in the street in which she sees a recording using a cordless phone, but remembers that she turned it off, so quickly returns to the house, where she does not seem to be alone. Meanwhile, a policeman and her mother go to Young-suk's house in 1999 and search the house and find her daughter's Bao, but nothing further leads to anything. Her mother remembers that she can call her husband, but when Young-suk is sure that the phone doesn't work, it beeps. Meanwhile, Yeon-suk of the real one leaves the house and So-yeon goes to a secret room in the wall and finds the phone there, but when mom calls the number up So-yeon and asks her to leave, as immediately she is knocked out and the policeman is killed by Yeon-suk. The women synchronously run away from the maniac and lock themselves in the same room. So Young asks mom to pull herself together and overpower Young-suk with a fire extinguisher. But when mom hears little So-yeon, she can't stand it and runs out to her, for which she gets stabbed. And when Young-suk leaves the room, So-yeon accepts her death. But at that time her mother runs out of the room and saves her daughter from death. So when So-yeon opens her eyes, the house is empty and she runs away from it. Terrified, she runs to the police station and tries to find out what happened there, but she heads to the hospital and doesn't find her mother there, and when she runs to the cemetery with her head full of horrible thoughts, she runs to the grave in hysterics. But then her mom shows up with the very scars from Young-suk that she got fighting for her life, so they head home. But it doesn't end that easily. It turns out that Yeon-suk from the present called Yeon-suk from the past and warned her that a policeman was coming to her house with So-young's mother, and already in the present the girl's mother started disappearing and she herself in an instant moved to that room, where Yeon-suk is likely to kill her as another pawn.
How are we supposed to keep making videos if not many people support us with their likes and subscribe? Please don't be lazy and be active, it's very important for us. Thank you for watching and see you in new videos.